Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
This may go down as the most super episode ever on the Manufacturing Masters Podcast. Why is that, you ask? Well, today I have the great privilege of bringing to you a conversation with two of my dearest friends in the entire world. Together, we call ourselves the Superfriends. What we've done over the last 10 years is something you can also create for yourself. It's a mastermind group, and we're going to talk about how we started doing it and why, how we've organized it and grown it, and what are the benefits, not just to your business, but to your entire life from creating an experience like this. So since we've been doing this for over 10 years and we've been asked repeatedly, how do I get what you have? How do I create this amazing thing that you three have? We thought, hey, maybe we should share the secret sauce, pull back the curtain, and help you listening create a mastermind for yourself and really turn your life and business into something super. So join me, my dear friends, Beth Goldfarb Jackson from CauseFarm Creative and Christina Haakenson from Juve Creative. Together, we are going to bring you a super memorable and useful experience. Everybody, here we grow. Today is a super special episode of the Manufacturing Masters Podcast. I have with me two of my dearest friends in the entire world, Beth and Christina, both agency owners like myself, and we have a very unique story to share with you. We started working with the same business coach back in like 2009, I think, and did some masterminds with him, and we just had this amazing chemistry, and we're getting so much out of it. And correct me, ladies, if I'm not retelling this right, but people over the years, we decided to keep going, right, on our own. And we meet every week for over a decade. And we talk about personal, business, and we have a structure, and we'll get into that more in a minute. But the point is I feel like it's been life-changing. And I know a lot of people have asked us, how do I get what you have? How do I create that? How do I find that? And we've been asked that so many times, I finally thought it's time to do an episode about that and let our listeners know what it looks like, how it changes your life, and like maybe how could they go about creating.
Yeah, I mean, we've been masterminding for 520 hours at least.
So we're experts at masterminding.
Oh, for sure.
So we started by creatives who lunch. Like we started out just kind of casual.
Well, I think we wanted to meet for lunch we met for lunch after our meetings with our teacher, right, our mentor, and realized that we were discussing all the different things and issues that were going on in our agency together, and thought, how cool is this? That was like the best lunch ever.
And I think it started, I brought a laptop and I wanted your feedback on a project I was working on. And one of our masterminders, who's not in the group anymore, but she actually said, she brought up the idea and she said, what if we do this like on a weekly basis? Which of course sounds crazy. Like, who would do that? And we decided to do it. We all live in different places. So, we did it. I don't think it was Zoom. It wasn't Zoom. It was,
no.
Oh, what, Skype?
Oh, we did Skype. Yeah.
Yeah. We did Skype. That's in the olden days. And and she said, let's do it every week. And for some reason, I think what kept it going was that our mentor and business coach, he created this space where you could say anything in the room and it would not leave. And there was this trust that was built. So these people you didn't really know, you became very close with because there was this safety. And I think we took that with us into our mastermind and that's where, that basically made us closer because we already had those rules established and we just kept doing it.
Well, and
I also think the key to it is that we all three or all four at the time were in the same agency industry, had an agency. I think that's kind of a big deal. I think that there's a lot of mastermind groups these days that are not in the same industry. They're just meeting as leaders or, that type of thing. And I think really, it's been pretty important, at least for the startup of our group, our masterminding, to be the same when it comes to being entrepreneur, agency owners, and kind of also think it helps that we're all women, able to share,
really
some pretty
personal
intimate and personal details and, so I think that those are some kind of key criteria to making it truly successful.
Well, and there's so many, obviously mostly manufacturers listening to this. So I think there's a huge opportunity for them to create something like this amongst, let's say a few of them, even if it's two. You've got this accountability buddy. And so that's why I thought this episode would be very meaningful and inspiring to everybody listening. And I want to know from you two, I know a lot of our listeners have already spent money and time on coaching, or they've been part of a mastermind like Vistage. Great group. I know people love it. And that's right. A lot of leaders come together from different industries. And I think it's very valuable. But did any of you feel like I did, where when I first made the investment of time, because I had to drive up to LA for this. So it was an hour there, hour back, and like an all day meetup. I think we did once a month or something. I was petrified because it felt scary to me that I was taking time away from my business. And I'm saying this for like a lot of the smaller manufacturers who are listening, because they don't have a big team. And I know they feel like they're wearing 75 hats, so they can relate to this maybe. But it felt a little intimidating. I didn't know what to expect. I think I felt a little afraid to be transparent and vulnerable. And what I found was it was the opposite, right? It wasn't time away. It was spending time on my business instead of in my business. And it was worth every penny. Did you guys have similar feelings or completely different thought going into it with the coaching?
I think I was kind of the same, but I went into it. I started coaching with like one-on-one. And right after then he started these masterminds. I think you were part of the first group. I was part of the second group. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm working on certain things with him, wouldn't it be better to do it in a group, not so isolated? So I kind of went full bore on everything and did all the masterminding. And yeah, it is scary to take an entire day away from your work, because I think we all know, especially back then, you're running an agency. You don't have a giant team backing you up. But one of the things I just wanted to point back to when you said like everyone's in manufacturing, that's a really big bubble. Mm-hmm. Say like everyone's in manufacturing, but just like our coach said, he kept telling us to like niche down and make it more narrow.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, like Christina was saying, that the fact that we are women entrepreneurs in the creative space, the more niche you get, the more you can help each other. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the surprising things was I went into it hiring him saying, oh, I need some accountability because I need to get my website done. And after one meeting, I realized it had nothing to do with my website and that it had to do with business development and personal development. So there's that. And the fact that they're not mutually exclusive, like people think there's like work and personal, and it's not, they're combined. And I think that's what makes our connection so special, is that it's not just about business, that we do talk about personal things because it all affects everything else.
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Christina, what say you, girl?
Yeah, well, I definitely was in the camp with you, Allison. I mean, the idea, I mean, at that time in my life too, I mean, that was even, yeah, it was over a decade ago. And that's when you have kids and you're running around ragged, trying to run a business. And, you know, as an agency owner, I feel like I've been a 23-year startup. So you're constantly, you know, just go, go, go. And time is money. So to invest that kind of time was really, really scary to me. But the other part, and this is just more of an individual and personal character, I don't know if it's a character flaw or not, but it was super, super competitive. And so the idea of exposing or sharing my trade secrets with other agency owners was also terrifying. You know, and then I also wanted to impress everybody,
Right?
you know, it was just, so there was, for me, when I first showed up, it was a lot of bullshit. And from a standpoint of just not being vulnerable, not, you know, being comfortable with all of it. But now, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the only way you learn is by sharing and opening up. And I can't believe how our business coach really developed that space, because that was a big thing. It's just breaking down that and realizing that we're all freaking human.
Yep.
And we all need help with our businesses, regardless if we're competitors.
Right. Excellent point. And I talk about this all the time, like in my newsletter or in these episodes about, you know, don't be afraid of your competition, but like reach out to them. And I do have a couple of my clients are really good about that. They go call on their competitors. They go have lunch. They talk about,
That's great.
Share war stories, like, and sometimes they end up working together on a project or something. So
collaborating. Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think it's really important. And so to describe to people listening who think, okay, I'm kind of intrigued, like this sounds cool. What do they do every week? Do they just get together and chit chat? It's like, no, we developed a process. So every week, usually on Sunday or Monday, we each spend time, I would say 30 minutes to an hour, probably. And we do a weekly update. And so we broke it down. So it's pretty simple. It's wins, losses, ahas, and fixes. And then at the bottom, we have our goals. Sometimes we have our financials. Like we really, it's a structure. And what I have found is, and then I want to hear from you too, it's such a great time, right, to slow down and think about what happened last week. What was great? What was a win? And it could be something really simple, or it could be something really huge. What was a loss? And then Christina's always been really good about this. At least I feel like you taught me, is your fixes are kind of attached to your losses, right? If you have a loss, then how are you going to fix it? And then the ahas, I think we could write a book at this point with all the ahas that we've had. What would you say to our listeners about, you know, your experience with that weekly update and check-in?
Well, I know, I mean, for me, it's a full wheel check-in, you know, and it really helps me, one, be present to what just freaking happened last week and to life as a whole. It helps me kind of take a time out and just like, wow, okay, so those are those wins. That's why I'm feeling really high this week. And let's celebrate that. Those are those micro movements of progress. And then there's the losses, that some of them are, you know, painful. And you're like, no wonder I was feeling a little down last week or down through this, because these are some serious losses that I need to face. And so how am I going to face these? So it gives me a time to kind of reflect on that what are my fixes for this? Because I don't want to keep creating the same mistakes. And then the ahas, for me, those insights allow me to grow. Obviously, we grow from those, but it also allows me to dream. So like, wow, I could do that. And then most importantly, I think for me, because of the way I work, it's accountability. I am able to look back on everything through the weeks of the years to see some growth, to see some setbacks, to see some trends that I want to continue and trends that I need to stop. Human behavior is primely outlined in these weekly updates. And, and it's really fun if you've been doing it for so long consistently, fun or not so fun, to look back and see, what was I doing that? Or why am I still doing that?
Right.
And then, yeah. And so then the best part too is just sharing it and being vulnerable with your mastermind group on it and getting that feedback from each of you individually. And I really look forward to seeing your weekly updates because, it's our lives. They're novels. They start to become a novel that you're looking forward to reading. But, so anyway.
It's true. What about you, Beth?
I agree with everything Christina said. And I think not only do you grow from doing your own, but you grow from reading each other's. Like I'll read, not like you're like in class and you're copying off someone else's paper, but the adult version of that, which is, oh, wow, okay, look, they had this big loss and look where they are now. Or some aha, and you're like, oh, wait, yeah, I had that too. And I feel like knowing that I don't necessarily like do it all. I update it throughout the week. Whenever I have something, I'll add it in. But I feel like it also makes you listen more in general to what's happening. So in the moment, if something is happening and it just feels awful and overwhelming and like a big failure, if you look at, like, you might think you just had like the most horrible week, and then you write down these wins, and I would say 9 times out of 10, our wins are much greater than our losses. So, but that loss might feel so huge, but when you write down all the wins, and like Allison said, it could be the tiniest thing. It could be, I finally planted that tomato in my garden, or whatever. It could be the smallest thing, but just celebrating anything that's positive, I think helps you move forward and change and look at things differently. So I think it's just a matter of perspective. And I'm not I don't write a journal, I don't have a diary or anything like that. And this is kind of like my journal / diary. So it's like basically, and we've saved them from how long? From like 2010, I think, is when we started, writing all this stuff down. So we have, 13 years of all of this information that you can go back and look on. And I think that's really amazing to see that growth.
Yes. Celebrating the growth. I think that's super important. And another thing that I wanted us to touch on is that we have a couple other things that we've instituted, right? We do an annual retreat, at least one. Sometimes in the past, we would do 2, maybe 3, like we would just do like a Palm Springs weekend. This year, we're very fortunate to be going up to Christina's in Oregon. She lives on the coast and in this beautiful place, and it's going to be magic. And what we do though is we set an agenda, which I love. Christina is really good about this, and she holds us accountable, because me, I would just say, hey, let's wing it. She's like, hold up, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to accomplish? And so those have been powerful over the years, to really spend time. Of course, we have fun, but we're there to work, to retreat, to plan, right? To reflect on the year that we just had and really savor the good, the bad, the ugly, and support each other. And then what the hell do we want to do next year? Sky's the limit. Let's dream big. And then again, I feel like Christina's been very instrumental in helping, especially helping Beth and I. Like, we can tend to get overwhelmed with like, okay, there's this big thing. And Christina's like, bite size, right? What are the steps that are going to get you there? And that's the accountability that I need. And I think Beth would agree. So maybe let's talk a little bit about this other part. Like, we do these weekly check-ins, but what's the value in meeting up once a year and reflecting and dreaming big for you?
Well, first of all, this is going to be our first time doing this in person since COVID. So I think that's really huge. I mean, I think what was great was during COVID, we still had these weekly check-ins, thank goodness for Zoom and Skype and Google Meet and all those wonderful things. We were able to stay connected, which I think is a sanity saver. Yes. But for me, these year-end things are just, they're absolutely magical. It's basically like you were saying when we started our masterminding with, individually or with the group, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking time away, right? You're taking time away from your family, you're taking time away from your business. But we are working on our business when we're doing this. And yes, like she said, we have fun, we drink wine, we make delicious food, we go out dancing, whatever it is, that's part of that weekend. But the most important thing, and it usually the big meetup that we have is at the year end. So we write out everything we've done for the year so that you can see all that you accomplished. You write down the things that didn't go well, so hopefully you won't repeat them or you fix them somehow. And yeah, the dreaming big is huge because I think a lot of times you get stuck in the weeds doing the client work, answering the emails, phone calls, doing the laundry, all the things that entail your life. And you don't really take time to take a step back and look at the big picture and think of what could be. And to me, that's something that's right up there with self-care. That's, getting the manicure, getting the massage, all that. Yep. Spending time with people who you are so tight with, who you can share pretty much anything. I think you guys know more than maybe even my best friend. I hate to say that, but just in the our daily lives, the way that we do things, really nothing is off limits. No topic, no subject is off limits. So I think it's absolutely magical, and I can only wish that people are able to find what we have.
Yeah, I think also the key, obviously the chemistry and the rapport that we've built over the years, but having just a little bit of structure with it helps us. Just stay on the course. Like Beth said, doing the wins, losses, ahas, and fixes for the year. And we've definitely tried all sorts of different things from other authors or personal development coaches that have influenced us. And it's fun for us to bring some of that diversity to our end of the year retreat, something different. I mean, think about our last retreat, we brought in some Marie Forleo stuff.
Yep.
We've brought in Daryl Hardy. We've brought in
Danielle Laporte.
Danielle Laporte. Oh gosh.
With our word.
Yes. And we've, been, open to trying new things that help us outline what's next for us in the coming year. But we do all that dreamy stuff and that creative stuff. But we also take the time to actually crunch the numbers, look and see, how can we actually achieve this? How can we make this happen? So we take the dreamy, the opportunity, and then we combine it with reality. How are we going to really make this happen? What are we going to do? And so we help each other build those formulas. And then that's what our mastermind weekly meetings after that are there for too, to help hold us accountable for the year of goals. So it's a beautiful, beautiful system.
Yeah, Christina, you're really good at helping us come up with a strategy and putting down the tactics, like how we are going to reach the goal, as opposed to just saying, I want to do this. You are really good at having us specifically outline all of the necessary steps, and it helps actually make it become a reality rather than staying in your head as a dream.
Yeah. Well, you guys help me have fun. That's for sure.
Well, and you
That's
bring
when
up
everything so damn seriously.
Yeah, and you bring up an excellent point, Beth, because I know so many manufacturers, like let's say 3 of them came together to create something like this. I think what they'll find is that each one of them has different strengths, and we play off and feed off of those strengths. And I'll give one example that's become, like, I don't know, it's a staple in our lives now, because we were at a restaurant in Palm Springs and there was some really annoying bachelorette party next to us. And I think Christina had just had enough. And so she accidentally knocked a glass off the table. And so we call it throwing a glass at each other, right? Or I used to call it brick to the head, but now we always talk about, whoa, Christina just threw a glass. And I think at first it can be your ego, right? Can get in the way. And you think, ouch, damn, that hurt. God, they're right. And you like, I think it's important that we've built that rapport where you can be that brutally honest with each other and say, you keep talking about X, but you're doing Y. Why is that? And it's like, whoo. And it makes you, that's that accountability that I think is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Really powerful. And I think also too, the rapport that we've built with each other, we respect one another. And because we've been vulnerable, we know each other, we know each other's strength and weakness. And so we're able to help each other do that 360. Is it 360? 360 view.
Yeah. Yep. None of us were math majors, just so we're clear.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say we're designers.
Many colors in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. And so surprisingly, this has flown by, not surprisingly, and we need to wrap up. So what advice would you like to give to our listeners if they're curious? How has this dedicated time and masterminding, how has it impacted your life and your business? Like, what, I guess, advice you would give / this is what I've gotten out of it. You might too. And anybody want to?
That's for like a whole other
episode.
I think there's too much, but I would say, some people, like Allison, you were saying, people always say to us like, oh, I want what you have. And I don't think you can just recreate that like with a formula. I think it takes a lot to get there. I mean, it takes having like interests, whether if you're in manufacturing, or maybe you manufacture something with wood. So that, that kind of, you go deeper and deeper in the connection. But I would say, don't force it. Just find a group, find a connection, and find people who are not yes people, not people who are just going to be your cheerleaders. You want to have someone who, like Christina, who's going to throw a glass at you. And I can't even tell you, because, you don't want someone blowing smoke up your ass, and just saying like, oh, you're doing a good job, you're great. You don't want that parent, who says everybody wins, because you know what? We don't always win. And you need people to be honest with you and to help push you to make you better. And so however you find that, whether you take out a personal ad and say, I'm looking for a mastermind group, or you go to an association meeting and find people and you connect with them, and then you say, hey, I have an idea. I've heard of this thing. What if we try it? You never know. It could become something magical like what we have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's priceless. But if I was to put a dollar amount on it,
and you will,
trust the business, and no joke. If I was to put a dollar amount on it, like I said at the beginning, just in the mastermind over a decade meeting, it's like 520 hours, right? But I mean, the amount of money that I've made in my agency because of you two, because of the feedback that I get, because of sharing trade secrets and going over things like, does this really make sense? The money that you've saved me in making bigger mistakes. I mean, I would say at least 2.5 million. So over a decade.
For sure.
You know, and the good news is that we could actually qualify that. We could actually show some systems from our weekly update to identify what the money value is, the return on investment of time. But when it comes to the emotional side, I'm alive, we're living, you know, like there's this whole other side of it, that wheel of fortune, wheel of balance that we opened up that I never expected. And
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to end on that. I think as women, as people, we were seeking balance, right? And so we started, who did we get that from? The wheel. Was that Darren Hardy?
The wheel. Was it Darren? Yeah, it was Darren. Remember?
And so we would look at all the different sections of the pie of life, right?
Which
so we looked at
measure in our weekly
family, adventure, finance, like all of it. And we look at this every single year and
every week
right,
we look.
Right. And I think what we realized is like, I remember our wheels have been freaking wonky, man, where there were some areas that were suffering. And I sat and looked at my wheel, you know, each year. And I would think, well, how is a wheel like that gonna gain momentum? And so I kept striving for this balanced wheel. And I think what I've learned and what I think has been a value of this work and paying attention to all the pieces of the pie of life is that you're never going to have a fully balanced wheel. Would you guys agree? And that's okay.
Yeah, but you still move forward, even with that
Right.
wonky wheel.
Right.
Yeah, you keep it rolling. Yeah.
But the fact
that
you're paying attention
I mean, I think it's just in flux, right? I mean, whatever we're focused on, that's the dent typically. And, you know, and as long as we keep growing, it's never going to be, completely round.
And to be okay with that. I think that's been one of the biggest revelations for me is I was always seeking this balance, you know, maybe it's being a Libra, maybe, I don't know. It's always my thing is I'm looking for the balanced, and I think I've learned, and I know a lot of people listening struggle with this too, is that, you know, sometimes work is just all consuming and some other stuff suffers. But at least if you're being mindful and you're paying attention to the whole wheel, I feel like it's less severe, right? At least you're like, hey, I'm paying attention instead of letting it go for an entire year. And then your spouse leaves you because, you know, you were not present. I'm using just an analogy, but like, or your business suffers because maybe you were all in on the personal. So I think it's just, again, that being mindful throughout the year, every single week, every quarter, and then reflecting that, it's been life-changing. So,
And also learning to be okay with the fact that as a professed attempted perfectionist, you know, being okay with the fact that you're not going to be able to get to everything, and it's okay. There are times when you need to focus on family. There's times when you need to focus on your business, and there's times when you can do both. But, you know, we're human, right? Things are constantly changing.
Yes. Well,
that was something you've always taught us too. It's okay to focus on one other, just one area and let the others, it's just priority of life. You need to,
And to know that it's not all going to hell in a handbasket because you did that. Right? Well, gosh, we could literally have our own podcast. But to wrap this up, I just want to thank both of you for being willing to come on my little podcast here and share your story, share our experience with the manufacturing world, because I think that there's a lot here. And if you listening are not already doing something like this, I want to encourage you to really consider it, maybe for 2024. And I think Beth brought up an amazing suggestion, is like you could reach out to people in an association that you're currently in, or that are, part of your state MEP, and just say, hey, I've got this idea, and give it a try. So if you listening are not already, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast, and feel free to leave a review on Apple and let others know that this is something worth tuning into. And I just want to say thank you for everybody listening, for the work that you do every day. It matters, and we need you. So thanks, everybody. Until next time.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.